Okay, today we're talking about division with partial quotients when you have numbers with decimals. Exciting stuff. Let's say you have a problem like 15.2 divided by 3. Well, the first thing that you're going to say is, okay, does my divisor have a decimal? It doesn't. So we can start working and setting up the problem. So this is something that is different than long division. When we have a decimal in the dividend, we actually just kind of ignore it. We're just going to ignore it when we set up the problem. And we're going to, I can't write today, 150. We're going to change 15.2 to 152. And we're going to make a note that we have one decimal place that we have moved over. We're just going to keep that in mind for when we get to the answer. Then we're going to go back and say, okay, what's my divisor? It's 3. I don't like how I wrote that 3. I have such bad handwriting sometimes. Okay, so 152 divided by 3 is what we're going to actually do using partial quotients. And let's say we want to have our final answer include decimals, if there is a remainder, rounded, let's say, to the nearest hundredth. So we'll keep that in mind. So the first thing we're going to do is just answer this problem. How many times does 3 go into 152? Well, I would say, I know 3 times 5 is 15. So 3 times 50 is 150. I'm going to subtract. I end up with 2. And since 3 does not go into 2, 2, if I weren't working with decimals, would just be my remainder. But I actually want to work with decimals today. So here's where it gets fun. I'm going to draw a line next to this 50, and I am going to put my decimal right next to it, just like on that line. And if I want to keep going, all I need to do is add a 0 next to the number that I'm working with, and I'm going to work in this next column now. And I say, okay, how many times does 3 go into 20? Well, it goes into 20 6 times. And then I keep working. 3 times 6 is 18, and I'm left with 2 again. Let's say I want to keep going. I'm going to draw another line, tack on another 0. I'm going to say again, how many times does 3 go into 20? Well, again, it goes in 6 times. 3 times 6 is 18. And I think we're noticing a little pattern here, but I'll stop there. I think I have enough decimal points. So now I'm going to look at this area, the partial quotient area here, and I'm just going to look at what I've got in these columns. I've got 50, a decimal point, and then 6, and then another 6. So I'm going to just write that in. Now I go back to my original problem and I say, wait a minute, I changed 15.2 to 152. I changed 15.2 to 152, and the way that I did that is I moved that decimal point over. So now I got to move it back. So what do I do is I go back up to my answer, my quotient, and I move that decimal point back. So really, what I have as my answer is 5.066. But I think we said we just want to round to the nearest hundredth, which is that spot right there. So I'm going to make my answer 5.07, rounding up. And there you have it. And that's how we work with decimals in a nutshell. Let's do another problem as an example. Hopefully I haven't lost you. That was a lot that we covered right now. Let's do another problem. Let's say we have 31.8 divided by 0.55. Now, look at this. We've actually got decimal numbers in our dividend and in our divisor. Now here's the thing. We cannot have decimals in the divisor. Just like traditional long division, we cannot have decimals in the divisor. So whatever we do to the divisor, we have to do to the dividend, and it gives us the same answer. So what am I going to do? I'm going to say 31.8 divided by 0.5. Here's my divisor. I need to move that decimal point over there. So now that becomes 5. And I need to move this decimal point over, so this becomes 318. And now I can answer my question using partial quotients. Let's do it. Don't like that line on this page, 318 divided by 5. Let's get to it. And let's say again, I want to round to the nearest hundredth. 318 divided by 5. I'm going to start by saying to myself, how many times does 5 go into 300 using friendly numbers? Well, I know 5 times 6 is 30, so 5 times 60 will be 300. Subtract, I get 18. How many times does 5 go into 18? The answer is 3 times. 5 times 3 is 15, and I'm left with 3. Now 5 does not go into 3. So I can do what I did with the last problem, which is draw a line, put that decimal point in, tack on a 0. How many times does 5 go into 30? It goes in evenly 6 times. 5 times 6 is 30, and I'm left with 0. So I'm just going to keep having zeros there. And now I'm going to look. I've got 60.6. We go back here. Let me go to the purple, equals 60.6. And because I changed the decimal, oh, wait, made a mistake. See, good thing I'm checking my work, because actually I didn't add these numbers up. 63.60. Silly me. So now I'm going to check that, and my answer is 63.6. And because I did to my dividend what I did to the divisor, we don't have to change anything. That is now my answer. All right. Now, if you feel like you've got it, you can stop watching the video. But if you're interested in another example with even more complicated numbers, stay with me here. What if I have a harder problem? Something like 10.51 divided by 1.22. Oh boy. Well, in this case, what I am going to do is I first look at my numbers, and I notice that the divisor has a decimal. The divisor has a decimal. We cannot have decimal points in the divisor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this over, but I also need to move this over. So now my problem becomes 105.1 divided by 12. I can work with that. Now here's the thing though. I have to keep in mind that my problem has one decimal, a decimal point there, and now when I set up the problem, with partial quotients, we don't have decimals in the dividend, so we're gonna move that decimal number back, because what we did was to make 105.1 1051 as we moved it over. So we have to remember to move it back later. Divide by 12. Oh, what a problem this is, huh? Let's get started. Okay, we're going to work with all of our friendly numbers. Just start quick and easy with 10. 12 times 10 is 120. Going to subtract. Going to end up with 931. Now, I know I'm going to go a little bit bigger because I know it's going to take me longer. I know 12 times 2 is 24, so 12 times 20 is 240. Subtract that. Okay, 691. Let's do another 20. Subtract. Keeping on going. Oh boy, this is going to be a problem that is definitely more involved. So now we're at 211. How many times can 12 go into 211? Well, it can't go in 20 times. That's going to be too high. So we'll go back to 10, which is 120 minus, all right, 1. Okay, we're ending up with 91. Oh my goodness, let's do another, oh, not 10, sorry. 12 times, let's see, 7 is 84. And now I happen to know the answer there is 7. And so now 12 can't go into 7. So let's say I want to add another decimal point. Well, first let's add these up. That's what I forgot to do last time. 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 87. Put my decimal point there. Say I want to keep going 1 decimal point. So I'm going to tack on a 0. I've drawn my line. 12 goes into 7 5 times. 12 times 5 is 60. Going to end up with 10. But 12 doesn't go into 10. So I would have to draw another line. And I can keep, let's just keep going for kicks. 12 doesn't go into 10, but I've added another line, so I can add my 0. 12 goes into 100 8 times. 12 times 8 is 96. I'm going to end up with 4. Okay, I'll stop there. And we've got, let's look at our quotients. We've got 87.58. We've got 87.58, but there's a problem. Well, I shouldn't say a problem. Do you remember how I moved this decimal point over? Well, now I got to move it back in my answer. I got to go back there. So actually my answer is 8.758. So 10.51 divided by 1.2 is 8.758. Let's say I want to round it to the nearest hundredth. It would just be 8.76. 8.76. And there you have it. I'll stop there. Hopefully I haven't lost you, and we will be doing, at least in my group, we'll be doing a lot of work with this. Till next time.